Well, let's go ahead and turn this over to our presenters here. And Mike and Adam, go right ahead.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, so my name is Mike Crook. I'm the Director of Finance Analytics at Tableau. Been with Tableau for just over 8 years now, and the role that I play at Tableau is really just enabling and empowering our finance organization to get access to the data they need to drive the business and to drive growth.
Hello, everyone. This is Adam Hannell at Eide Bailly. I'm out of our Billings, Montana office, and I have been with Eide Bailly for a little over 11 years now. I've had multiple roles here, but I've been very blessed with the last 3 to 4 years working with our data analytics group. This has allowed me to work internally with our own financial data and with the financial data of our clients to help drive improved results using data.
All right, well, thank you, Mike and Adam, for presenting today. We are now going to turn this over to Mike. And Mike, you should be able to start sharing your screen.
Great, thanks, Amy. So again, my name is Mike Crook, and I'm with Tableau Software, and I'm excited today to tell you just a little bit about the company, our journey with our digital transformation, and then just give you some insight and some dashboards that will show you how to leverage data that's coming from maybe your CRM system, and also just examples also that are coming from your ERP or your general ledger. So if you guys aren't familiar with Tableau, our mission is to help people see and understand their data. To explore more about that, you can check out our website and be able to look at some of the story and the philosophy and the impact that we're able to have on the world with being able to analyze data. A little bit about our products. So Tableau has 4 major products that are part of our product suite. You can also check these out on our website. So the main one that we're going to be discussing with you guys today is our Tableau Desktop product. But as you start to expand your journey with Tableau Desktop, this is where you can also start to look at Tableau Prep, Tableau Server, and potentially also Tableau Online for our fully SaaS offering. So when we talk about how we're using Tableau inside of Tableau to support our finance organization and drive the growth of our company, these are just some of the ways that we're able to use our product. So whether it's in accounting, FP&A, investor relations, internal audit, treasury, and you can see the rest of these. And I've had the pleasure over the last year and a half to partner with subject matter experts and leaders inside of the Tableau organization that are responsible for these functions and be able to bring that information together into some webinars. So if you're excited about learning more about these different areas, I'll show you a link later in the presentation to that information. So when we talk about finance, we have this challenge that we're dealing with, and then there's the opportunity that Tableau can help with us dealing with that challenge. So many of us probably have one general ledger. Well, we all have at least one, but we might even have more, depending on mergers and acquisitions, the growth of our company, our footprint globally. But the reality is, whether you have one or many general ledgers, they are being fed by a variety of source systems: payroll, purchasing, travel and expense, and others. And the challenge is there isn't a place to store all the details from those source systems. So the information is often being aggregated, which then leads our accountants to have to go back to and our analysts to go back to those source systems to download that information, often being done in Excel. And now we've proliferated the static data into all these Excel files. We know the data is constantly changing, and we also just have this challenge of the effort to bring the information together for management, executive, and board reporting packets. That process is typically done inside Excel. And when you're done, you're snapshotting it and then putting it into PowerPoint. And then you're just crossing your fingers that nothing changes and you have to repeat that process for that period. But you know that when you get to that next month, that next quarter, you're going to have to repeat it. So now there's that opportunity with Tableau, using it to help you do some of your data validation, doing your ad hoc analytics, bringing data together from multiple different data sources, which we'll be able to show you here today. And then there's other opportunities as well. So in my advice to any group that's starting to use Tableau is start small and keep it simple. Your organization, and based on the polling question, it sounds like this is the case for most of you, you don't have a data lake or a data warehouse or being able to land all that information to a single place that's easy to connect to, that you can start to bring it together for analytics. But so this is where you can start using Tableau with those Excel files, that process that you have figured out to do that, and get those quick wins and those early insights. And then you'll be able to take those rapid prototypes and then partner with your IT team, or partner with partners that like Eide on helping you begin and implement and be able to drive value with a data warehouse strategy. So some of the examples I'm going to show you are years in the making. Now, they didn't take years to make, but they've been evolving. So they started simple, just basic things to answer some immediate questions, and then they've grown over time. So don't be daunted by some of the dashboards that we're going to show you. Just know that this is the end game. This is the end result. This is the art of the possible with Tableau. So where is Tableau's finance data? Where is the data that we're trying to consume internally with our own product? So NetSuite is our general ledger, and Adam's going to show you how you can tap into NetSuite and get some of that information from there. Salesforce is our CRM system, and hopefully you guys recognize a few of these other systems there. But the problem with those systems is you may not be able to directly connect to them with Tableau or potentially other products either. And that's because for many reasons. One, the vendor may not allow you to do that. Your IT organization may not want you to do it because of impact, performance impacts it can have while people are trying to use those admin systems with everybody who's trying to query it real time. So you then have to go down the path of extracting that information from that system. And then then you're going to need to transform it. Often, right, transformation is applying business logic to that information and then loading it into some database platform. Now, depending again where you are in your digital transformation, you may be still doing an ETL process, right? The extract, transform, and load. If you're farther along in the process, you may have shifted where the transformation is done and gone to an extract, load, and transform. And so this is where you're extracting your raw data. Often you're landing that into your data lake. And then you're going to start to then do curations or transformations of that. And this is now often where you're doing that at your database, your data warehouse layer. And the reason why we're shifting the paradigm of where the transformation is because that's where the business logic is. And if your business logic is being done before you load the data, now you're dependent on IT. If you can shift it to the end, now you can decide, okay, do we do those transformations at the database layer, or do we do them at the Tableau layer, or the layer that's on top that's trying to consume that data? And that allows you to then distribute who is responsible for some of that transformation. So at Tableau, we've not only distributed our analytics team, so my team is embedded inside of finance. We have similar teams inside of sales and marketing and operations. So we've distributed the analytics, but we've also started to go down the path of distributing some of the data engineering and the data pipeline. So that's a big responsibility that some of my team has. Now, again, so here at Tableau, we're landing the data into a variety of places. Sometimes Excel does have its use case. Sometimes we're landing it into Tableau Hyper Extracts. There might still be that small use of Microsoft Access databases inside of your organization. But historically for Tableau, we were landing it into on-prem SQL Server. And a couple of years ago, we made the shift to go away from SQL Server and into Snowflake. And I'm going to spend the next couple of slides talking about that journey that we took from moving from SQL Server and into Snowflake. So early on, we were just exporting the data from NetSuite into Excel and then connecting to it with Tableau Desktop to do some of our ad hoc analytics. But that wasn't enough, and it was manual, and we had to continue to repeat that process every day or every week or whatever the frequency was. So then we started a proof of concept of with just a simple access database. And again, this was 9 years ago when we were doing this, of just connecting through the ODBC driver inside of NetSuite and being able to try and reproduce the income statement and the balance sheet inside of Tableau Desktop. Now, that solution worked as a simple POC, but you can imagine as we added more months to that database, Microsoft Access cannot support that much information. And so we quickly grew to over 100 and to over 700 megs, and it proved to us that we could do what we wanted to do, but certainly Access was not the solution. And so now we're able to partner with IT to come with that better solution. So that initial solution was with SQL Server. So we were extracting the information. We had about 28 different tables. Again, we went back to the beginning of time and the founding of Tableau in 2003. So we went from 3 million transaction lines to over 100 million by the time that we got to 2017. And part of that with 2017 was we needed to enable multi-book and the advanced revenue modules to support the new revenue standards of ASC 606. And so this was quickly, we had already started to realize that SQL Server was no longer going to work for us as far as an on-prem solution. And so we really needed to look for a better way to do this. And so that better way for us, so we evaluated all the major players in the space, but we settled on Snowflake. And if you guys aren't familiar with Snowflake, they are a next generation data warehouse as a service platform, and where they separate not only storage from compute, and we've been super satisfied and happy with that transition. So all the movement of all of our finance data was the first move that we've made to Snowflake. And over the last, and we actually earlier this year just finished moving all of our sales data onto Snowflake as well. And now we've expanded to over 150 million transaction lines, over 50 different tables that are being refreshed out of our NetSuite environment. And we've been able to, as I talked about, shift that paradigm to where we're doing the transformation to the latter part. So trying to get your data out of NetSuite doesn't come easy, and there are challenges that you're going to have to deal with. And so it's important, if you don't have the IT staff inside of your organization to support you with this, this is where you need to maybe to work with a partner, and Eide Bailly is one of those that you guys can look at for that assistance. But the challenge is their API didn't support custom fields. When you're dealing with backend databases, you have primary keys and foreign keys, and so you need to understand the relationship of those tables. And so just to resolve simple things like get to the account name versus using the account ID requires a join. And so now what you think would just be a couple of tables now turns into a dozen tables that have to be joined to be able to do some of the reporting that you want to do. And you can see some of the other challenges that we faced with this. Now, some of the specific challenges that we faced is trying to do this is, we had our hierarchies built inside of NetSuite. We also had some other hierarchies of our organization structure, and those weren't easy to get to inside of NetSuite. So we had to enrich those hierarchies and store those hierarchies into our reporting database to assist with our analytics. Tableau is an international company, so we're dealing with multiple currencies. So there's some work that you're going to have to do to resolve those currencies, not only for your income statement, but inside of your balance sheet. And then just because of how your balance sheet works, there's a couple of components in the equity section that aren't transactional based. There's subtotals and calculations that have to happen. And so those aren't things, we've been able to solve for them in some other ways, but not through basic transaction processing. So we have all these challenges, but why do we do this? Why is it worth doing all that? Well, we do all that. You won't be able to do stuff like that. So this board isn't using data that's coming from NetSuite or coming from a general ledger. This is data that's coming from our sales system. And again, for us, that was Salesforce. And so it is a critical component to your operating, your income statement, is your revenue, is your income, right? And so you need to have tremendous insight into your sales pipeline and the funnel to know whether or not you're on target, whether you're going to meet those goals, whether or not you can continue to spend at the frequency in which you were doing. And certainly during these trying economic times, having insight into this information is critical, and it's important so that you can quickly pivot and make those decisions on, if we're doing great, let's spend more. If we're not doing great, where can we look to make some difference? So this is an interactive dashboard that's pulling data from, it's connected to our reporting database, which is being fed from our Salesforce application. So here we're not only looking at the deals that are closed, we're looking at our open pipeline. We'll be able to assign probability weightings to where they are in the stage cycles. So now we can see what is the expected amount, but we also have some insight if we run the table and close all of those deals, what it's worth. So down here at the bottom, we're bringing those numbers together. We've brought in a reference line that is bringing in our quota or our target for those teams. And so now we can start to see how is our sales organization doing through color and coding, and we've been able to make it a little more visible, this pipeline ratio. So if a number is between 1 and 2, then it's yellow, which is okay. If it's above 2, it's green, which is great. If it's below 1, it's red. We have a problem here in our S&B organization. Why is that? Well, through action filters, I now can filter all the deals down over here on the right to the accounts that are rolling up to that. You'll be able to navigate farther into this dashboard and be able to look at the sub-teams. We'll go all the way down to the account manager. Now you can start to ask those questions and answer those questions that you didn't think you had. Do we have a marketing problem? Are we not generating enough leads? Is it a bad territory? Is it a new account manager that is still ramping? What are the causes for this team potentially not meeting their goals? Now, as you shift beyond your pipeline and the deals, now you want to start focusing on that revenue. And so Tableau was historically, right, perpetual licenses, and the revenue recognition methods are different for perpetual licenses than they are now for subscription and the model that we have transition to. But so this was a dashboard that we built to try and bring together not only the revenue that's coming from our general ledger, but the pipeline and those deals that are coming from our sales system so that we can model them and predict what we think our revenue is going to be. And so we have the table of numbers, right? It's really hard to pull tables of numbers away from your accountants and finance folks, but we now have bringing in some visual aspects to this. We have these bar charts that are showing each of the quarters. We're actually using a dual axis bar chart, so we now can calculate the year-over-year growth of each of those quarters. And then through a parameter control, you can decide how you want this model to work. Do I want to use a custom pipeline weighting, or do I want to use those standard probability weightings that we have for each of the sales cycles? Well, right now it's at 50%. Well, let's dial this up because we're super excited about our growth and we know that we're going to be able to overachieve. And as we do that, you can see how quickly all the numbers were recalculated. So this was a dashboard that was being used by our finance leaders and our executives to monitor how we're doing and have that early insight into the revenue. So I'm going to show you a couple other dashboards here. There's so many to show. I've only just kind of picked a few of them, but I'll also show you where you can go and explore these some more. So this is a dashboard that was built and is maintained and supported by our FP&A team, so our financial planning and analysis team. And this is a dashboard that they're using as they're working with their business partners to show them how they're doing in their management business review. How are their actuals comparing to their budget and their forecast? And we're again bringing in the visual aspect to this information as well as the crosstab of numbers. And so now the user can decide, do I want to look at what period of time? Switch this over to November. Right now, the department is set to our development organization. Maybe I want to look at the entire company, or maybe I'm meeting with an executive from our sales team today. But the beauty is that this dashboard is being used by everybody. It's that single source of the truth where you now can have confidence in your numbers and be able to know what actions and decisions that you can make. And this isn't just financial data. We've brought in headcount data so we can calculate this per FTE rate. We've also brought in our income so that we can now calculate this percent of revenue. And so the user can start here, maybe I will look at my benefits, all the charts, as well as my year-to-date and full-year numbers have been filtered down to just salary and benefits. Maybe I want to look at the underlying details. Here is just a summary of the data points, but I want to look at all the data that's here. And this is a capability that the user who's creating, the author that's creating this dashboard, can decide if a user is allowed to be able to do that. And if they need to, they can export this information to do further analysis, maybe outside of Tableau. So we're showing you this a journey, right? We started with income. We're now looking at management business reviews. Now we're doing a deeper dive into some of the verticals inside of your finance organization. Here we're looking at accounts receivable data. While we appreciate that you've purchased the software from us, we really want you to pay for it, right? And that's what accounts receivable is responsible for, is making sure that our customers are paying for the services and the software that they purchased. And so this is an interactive dashboard. This can be used as a workflow management tool for your AR team. If you can find the country on the map, go ahead and click on it. That's great. If it's really small and it's hard to find, now you can use the list of countries over here. This list is filtered to not only show you, or ordered to not only show you who your top countries are, but what their percent of total is. And this is a simple thing to do with some table calculations inside of Tableau. So as I hover or click on France, the map has been filtered, all the customers and all the invoices have been filtered as well. And another really useful thing of this is, let's say your CFO comes to your AR manager and goes, I need to know right now how much is more than 120 days past due. I don't know how easy it is for you to answer that question, but with this dashboard, it's a simple click. All I have to do is click on this column. I now can see we have 3 invoices for $160,000, and now I can take action. Maybe I want to navigate off of this dashboard and go into Salesforce. Look at the call notes. Look at the last time that we reached out to this customer. So now we can take action, whether it is to collect the money, or now we maybe need to write that business off of the books. Now, this isn't an interactive dashboard. This is just a screenshot, but this was an interesting exercise that we did a number of years ago in trying to see how are customers paying for their software. Now, are they using credit cards? Are they using EFTs and wires? Or are they issuing checks? And as you can imagine, especially as we started to build out a web store so that people can self-serve with the ordering of software and services, that there would be a high volume of purchases that were being done by credit cards, but we would also expect those to be low dollar amounts. And this dashboard shows that to us. We can see we have 48% of the volume of transactions were coming through on credit cards, and the color legend is over here. But then that only represents 12% of the total. So it's not a surprise. And then we decided to go even farther, and let's go ahead and turn it into what is the payment size per transaction. So kind of an average transaction size. And as you would expect, these are just a couple $100 transactions that are coming across on credit cards, but then there are a couple $1,000s that are coming across EFTs and wires. And if you guys haven't noticed, all of this data has all been scrubbed and mocked up, so we can share with you guys. And then so the last couple that I'm going to show you, now we're shifting. So we're looking at our Treasury data. And we're super proud of what the partnership that we've had with our Treasury team over the last couple of years. We've been able to land all the data from all of our bank accounts, be able to land all of our investment data into our reporting database. And we've now turned Tableau dashboards into our Treasury management system instead of having to invest millions of dollars in implementing one. And so this one is looking at our closing ledger balances from all of our different bank accounts. And now we can see our distribution of cash across all these different currencies. So you can imagine, knowing what your FX exposure is critical to your organization. And we can see some other cool information with this too, of the timing of the movement of cash. So as we hover over this data point, we can see in the tooltip that on December of 2016, there was a huge deposit out of US dollars into Australian dollars. And then a couple of days later, there was a huge withdrawal of the Australian dollars. Well, maybe that was the timing for a payroll run, or for rent and lease payments for facilities that are in an organization. These are all the timings that are really critical for your cash flow and your cash management inside of your organization. And the work that we were able to do with our Treasury organization organization actually led to 2 industry awards for leveraging technology in the Treasury industry. We got one in 2018 and then another one this year. Last two I'm gonna look at are now for travel data. So I haven't met a CFO in the world that doesn't care about travel and entertainment expenses, right? It is a huge discretionary spend for an organization. Well, right now, we'll all hunker down in our homes. We're not traveling very much, but earlier this year and hopefully in the soon here in the future, we'll be able to travel more. And then having insight into this information is going to be critical to your organization. And so here we've been able to take the data out of Concur and Agencia and bring it into in a dashboard. So I'm going to click on this top spender here, just over $56,000. I can see that they are in the US region. They are part of the 1120 cost center. And now I have this visual representation of all of the trips that they've done. And then I have the itinerary details. Now, as a leader inside of Tableau, I want to have insight into what my team is spending and how they're traveling. And that is not an easy thing to do inside of Concur and Agencia. But by landing this data into a reporting database and then putting Tableau on top of that, it's now easy with a simple click here to have some insight into that information. And then the last dashboard I'm going to show you before I turn things over to Adam is doing a network map. So this was something we created a long time ago. There's a lot of easier ways to do it inside of Tableau now. So if you download this workbook, you'll go, hey, Mike, why'd you do it this way? But we just haven't used the latest features of Tableau to make this happen. But the use case here with this network map is critical to the organization. So your travel manager, your FP&A team, your marketing team is planning events. Having insight into this information is critical. Your internal audit team may be managing against your T&E policies. So now with some action filters, the user can decide, what do I want to look at? I'm going to switch this to all. Now it's a crazy network map and a spaghetti chart, but I can start to hover over these data points. I can see the airports that they're flying to. I also can see that, hey, it looks like San Francisco is a really popular origin for all the travel. Well, what's the most popular destination? Wow, interesting. That's London Heathrow. And with this enriched tooltip, we can see how much they've spent, how many flights, what's the average cost per segment. And so this is all critical information that your travel managers can use for negotiation with your travel vendors, recommendations to your employees on who your preferred airlines are, and things like that. So it's been an absolute pleasure sharing you with some of the, showing you and sharing with you some of the dashboards that Tableau is using to drive our business, the journey that we took on our digital transformation. So I'm just going to end with here's some resources for you. So I've taken an entire hour-long webinar, since, shrunk it down to about 10 or 15 minutes. If you guys want to explore the entire webinar, as well as all the dashboards that are part of that, check out this link. If you guys are Concur, Agencia, or Cooper customers, I recommend checking out these where we have some starter workbooks to help you going, and then learn what other customers are doing. Read some white papers and other things from our solution site, and you'll be able to check out some of the stuff on Tableau Public and be able to download not only this workbook that I'm showing you today, but also other Tableau workbooks. Be sure to check out my Tableau Public Gallery. So it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over back to Amy for another polling question, and then Adam will go.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Okay, I believe we are now moving into Adam's part. So Adam, you should be able to share your screen.
Well, great. Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for the opportunity to present on how to use your accounting data to make better decisions. From the poll, it looks like just over half of us are in the beginning phase of exploring analytics, and a lot of us are seeing Tableau maybe for the first time, which means a lot of us are probably still using our financial reports to run our business. Today, I'd like to start by reviewing that common process of using financial reports for the month-to-month management, and then we'll dive into Tableau. So today your process might look like this. I'm inside of NetSuite and I'm going to look at my financial reports and pull up my income statement. Now in this scenario, I probably want to compare my numbers from month to month. So as you can see, I've got June up here. I'm going to just click the little download to Excel file. And I probably want to look at, we're just going to do 2 different months here. Let's look at May's as well. Refresh our report. I'm going to download that file as well. So alone, the income statement doesn't give me all the information I might need. I might want to open up my balance sheet and refresh that. I'm going to download that for June 2020 and then do the same thing for May as well. I want a really good set of data for when I build my custom report in Excel. This is everything that I need to glean insights from. Now, a lot of these reports, I might want to dive a little bit more into the detail of what I can access. So I may come in here and choose a certain subsidiary, maybe a certain location or department. Let's say I just want to look at sales. I'd refresh that data and I might export that just for sales for a little bit more granular detail. Moving on, again, I need more data, so I'm going to look at my cash flow statement. I have this pre-run. I'm going to export it. And then because I like to kind of keep my finger on the pulse of the sales, I want a transaction detail report as well. We can see by the scroll bar on the side that this is a pretty big report. So I'm going to want that as well. So I hit the little download button over here. You can see kind of how this exercise is going. I go through each one of my financial reports individually. I'm downloading them to be used later for consumption. I'm going to grab one more transaction, one more balance sheet detail. We're going to look at, back to the cash flow, we're going to look at May's. I'm going to refresh that and download it here. So if I head over to my saved files, I have some here in my OneDrive. It wouldn't be very motivational or educational if I just sent all these files I just downloaded to my audience. At the end of each month, I might have a half a dozen or more of these Excel files that I would need to blend together in some sort of manner to track the performance of my business. I'd most likely create my own customized report using the data from all of these reports and call it something like a leadership report or a financial summary or a performance report. I mocked up a quick example of that here in Excel. This is data that I would have pulled from each one of those files. We won't go through that whole exercise. But these are my two worksheets with maybe some metrics and some numbers that I would sit down and share with my leaders or my business or board to make sure that we're on track. Now, I'd like to point out that I'm using NetSuite here as our source system because we here at NetSuite are one of the largest NetSuite solution providers. But the process of using financial data to make better decisions isn't a challenge that's unique to NetSuite. We see this across all ERP, point of sale, lead tracking, general ledger, and timekeeping systems. I like to think of these financial summary reports as rear view or side mirrors on our vehicles. Each of them offers a different perspective that guides us on our journey. And as a side note, you can tell that some of us are better at using our mirrors and our financial data than others. You can see there's clearly limitations to this process. The sheer volume of files leads to spreadsheet anarchy. Sometimes I can have multiple sources of the truth, different files with different numbers in them because I ran them differently. Not to mention the inefficiencies related to the amount of time and level of effort on a reoccurring basis just to generate my performance report. So where do we go from here? As Mike mentioned, we should start small and keep it simple. By leveraging Tableau, we can gain quick insights on our data and automate this cumbersome process. I'm going to start by using a saved search that I created in NetSuite. In addition to the default transaction search results, you can see here that I have added other account fields, the department field, location, and some customer information as well. This saved search will allow us to explore all of our data without having to run multiple reports through NetSuite, each with different criteria, different time ranges, and save them all together. This will give us all of our transactions in NetSuite completely. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save and Run at the bottom here. As you can see, if I scroll down, we have 191 pages of transaction data. I really wouldn't want to try to consume this on my own, looking at it through a browser or maybe even pulling it into Excel. So I'm going to export this to CSV. So we've run our save transaction search. We've exported it to CSV. Now we're going to dive into Tableau. A CSV is a text file. I'm just going to connect to that within Tableau. It's right at the top of my downloads folder here. And this allows me to have a quick preview of my data. What I'm going to do is just kind of move this column around. I noticed that my account column has a structure in it that I'd like to break out so I can get more detailed in my analytics. We're just going to right-click account. We're going to do a custom split. I see that there's a colon that separates each of these different fields. And I want it to separate at each instance of that colon. So I'll click OK. This will certainly come in handy later. You'll notice we still have our account column, but now we have 5 new account columns. It split it from account split 1 to account split 5. Now, since I'm familiar with my data, I know this account split 1 is nothing more than the account number and the transaction type. We already have that data in 2 other columns. It's a little redundant, so I'm just going to delete it. And then I'm going to come through and rename these fields so they make more sense to me. This is the account parent. And the rest of these are my sub-accounts. Okay, now we'll hop over to our sheets to start visualizing our data. Down here at the bottom, we have sheet 1. Now, we'll start by exploring our accounts receivable data. In light of recent events, I'm sure this is something that's at the forefront of all of our minds, and it's definitely a metric that our staff can help influence. So we want to get that out there in front of them. I'm going to rename sheet 1 to accounts receivable. Okay, now we're going to use the account type and move this to the filters and filter on just accounts receivable data. Okay, we're going to bring the amount to our report and our company name to the rows. Already I can see there's quite a bit of noise within our data. Looks like we need to remove the null company names. My save search is probably a little too generic. I got everything in there. So we'll want to clean that up. To do so, I'm going to drag my company name to the filters. And I'm just going to deselect null there. Okay. This is an AR report, so we're not too much interested in those accounts that have a $0 balance. I'm going to grab our amount field, also bring that up to the filters. We're going to look at the sum of amount, and I'm going to tell it needs to be at least $1 or more. Great. Now we can see our list of our companies that we do business with and their total outstanding AR. Now to take this maybe a step further, there's a great feature in Tableau called the Show Me button. It's actually already clicked up here on the right-hand corner, but I'm going to close it and re-click it. We're going to take this visual and just turn it into a highlighted tables visual. This allows us to have our eyes focus on the data that's the most important. I'm going to hide that Show Me panel. And you can see that it's highlighting based on the sum of the amount. Well, what good is an AR report if we don't really know the age of the outstanding balance, right? To do this, we're going to need to create a calculated field. And don't worry if you're not familiar with or if you don't have the desire to use the scripting language within Tableau, that's something we're definitely here to help you with. So I'm going to create a calculated field. I'm going to call it AR age. And we're just going to use a function within Tableau called dateDiff. it gives me a little bit of a heads up on how I need to format my calculation here. Well, what we're going to say is we want the number of days between the date field in our data, our transaction date, and today's date. Looks like I missed a comma there. There we go. This is going to be very handy when we connect to live data and we see the AR aged change daily as our data changes as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK here. Now we probably want to start by targeting our most outstanding AR first. So I'm going to take this AR age calculation that we just created, and I'm going to move that to the color on the marks up here. You'll see some changes over here on the right side. I also noticed that it's summing our AR age. It's summing all the number of days within those transactions, when really, to give us a better result, today we're going to want to look at the average of those days. So all of a sudden, you see those colors shift again. We have some dark colors around some of these clients. The color blue to me doesn't really convey the sense of urgency that I would like to instill upon my staff. So I'm just going to change that color really quick. I'm going to come up here to average AR age. Instead of blue, let's grab red. That tells me these ones are a little more urgent. I can hover over these two here that are standing out to me. Looks like this one has an average age of 144 days outstanding, and this one 116. Looking at that dollar amount, it's probably a sense of urgency. Now, just for fun, we might take this worksheet that we've created. We can right-click it and duplicate it. Now, we're just doing this to explore the Show Me button a little bit more. I'm going to click that. There we go. I'm going to click the Show Me button, and I might take this visual here that's rows and columns and simply change it to a tree map. This might represent that data a little bit easier for my users to see, or maybe something like the packed bubbles visual. Now you can see each company name. If you hover over it, you can see the amount that they are past due, but we might want to take that amount field and drag it to the label. That way it's painfully obvious to us the amount of AR that that company has that we need to work with. I'll just rename this worksheet down here AR bubbles. All right, let's move on. Mike touched on this earlier, but let's examine our expenses. So I'm just going to create a new worksheet. You can see it looks like it did when we started our accounts receivable. Again, we're going to explore the account types. Since we're looking at expenses, we're only going to select that. Okay, this time we're going to use the account subcategory 1 as our rows, and we're going to plug in the amounts here as well. This is great. Now I've got a grand total of all the expenses within my company from all my transactions. But again, these reports, these reports and dashboards that we're creating, there's something we want to deliver to our end users. We don't want to have to give it to them in a static form. We want this to be very dynamic and something that they can use. There's quite a few accounts here that my employees just might not have control over. So let's filter those down by taking the subcategory or the sub account. I'm going to deselect everything. And we're just going to look at advertising, dues and subscriptions, look at some miscellaneous expenses, supplies, and training. During these difficult times, these are definitely areas that we can either invest in with our expenses or pull back the reins on. So these are ones that we've identified our users can contribute to helping with. Again, we're seeing grand total expenses here. Doesn't paint a great picture. We're going to want to drag our date from our transactions to the columns and then expand year. I'll expand quarter as well. Now we can see our expenses for each one of these accounts. across each year and quarter. Quarter's a little busy for me. I'm just going to remove it. Now we can see the year and the month. This is something that you and I might look at. We're maybe used to looking at the old column and row format. But again, this is for our end users. So we need to do a better job at representing this data to them to drive action. Right up here in the Show Me panel, I'm just going to select the lines. This is great at representing change over time. But this graph might look a little bit off. There's such big empty space there. What I want to do is track each account separately. I'm going to again grab that account sub 1 and just drag it to my rows. What this did is it split out each one of those lines for each account. Now, if you notice, the axis looks a little goofy for each one of them. It's all 0 to 1500K. We want to change that. So I'm just going to right click, edit axis, and I'm going to make it an independent axis. You can see that change behind the scenes for us. If I close that there, now we can see the trend in spending in each one of these expense accounts from last June to this June. Very interesting. We could have some good conversations off this. To add a little more detail, I'm going to drag the amount field to the label, and that's kind of busy for me. So I'm just going to select my label here. There we go. And only look at the min and max values. That cleans it up a little bit so we can really kind of see the trends, how things have been going. Now we have a very easy to review expense page. I'm going to rename that worksheet to expenses at the bottom. Again, our focus today is to use our financial data to drive actionable results from our team. So let's examine our top clients to make sure that we're giving them the love they deserve, because they too are most likely facing tough decisions like the rest of us. Again, I'm going to create a new worksheet. I'm going to rename this to top 10. And we're going to use that account type field again. I'm just going to look at my income on the type fields. Again, we're going to use that amount field and also the company name. I'm going to bring that to rows. Okay, so again, we've got a lot of this busy data. We need to clean it up. We don't want to have to wade through all of these. We just want to know our top 10. We can do this by filtering on the company name. I'll drag the company name pill to the filters. I don't need these null companies. That's data I need to clean out. And then there's this top tab up here. I can select the top 10 by amount, by the sum of amount. If I click OK here, now I've got my list of my top 10 clients that are generating income for us. We may want to right click this field, sort it. We see Murphy pops to the top. This will be handy later on when we build the dashboard for our users to see. It's very easy to right click this top 10 worksheet. We can duplicate it. We're going to rename this one. If it'll let me here, there we go, to bottom 10. Right back up into our company name filters, edit that, and instead of sorting by the top 10, filtering by the top 10, excuse me, we're going to grab our bottom 10. Always a good idea to know, right? Okay, so now what we need to do is bring this all together. We're going to pretend today that we are creating a dashboard for our account executives. So down here on the bottom right-hand part of the screen, I'm going to create a new dashboard, and I'm going to rename this account executives. And this is all the data that we want them to see. So first, I'm going to bring our expenses to the top. Across the bottom, we're going to look at our top 10 clients and our bottom 10 clients. And then on the side, instead of the bubbles, because I don't have a lot of room, I am going to use that more Excel type columnar structure that we're used to there. And then this looks a little bit disorganized. I'm just going to adjust the sides, the margins a little bit so we can read everything. There. So we've adjusted it for readability. Now we're ready to publish this dashboard, and it brings up a discussion. To me, a few things come to mind. First of all, who's following up with these AR items that are in the red? We can easily see where we need to target our discussions there. And then this one here, hopefully we understand what happened in May under miscellaneous expenses. Maybe that needs to be categorized better. Maybe we plan for that expense. I'm not sure, but they sure shot up in May and they came down in June. But I know May was a tough month. So let's talk about that a little bit. Additionally, we might notice that our top company here, Murphy Incorporated, also lands on our accounts receivable list. Now, if I hover over the amount that Murphy Incorporated owes us, you can see that their average AR age is only 49 days. Nothing to get real too excited about at this point. But based on this information, it might be a good time for me to just check in with our contact at Murphy. Now, these are 3 quick examples of talking points that came up as a result of the account executive dashboard. Now that this is built, I can automate the data connection for daily refreshes and make it easily available for my team to use on the web or on their mobile phone. All of this without having to run my standard set of financial reports, weed through each of those Excel files or CSV exports, compile all those results, and creating my own performance report. Keep in mind here, we're using a single data source. So these reports get really fun and dynamic once we start adding multiple data sources. Now, how can we help you here at Eide Bailly? Our mission is to make every company a data company. We believe that data should be treated as an asset and that the value of your data increases as your ability to use it matures. Earlier, Mike touched on data lakes, data warehouses, terminology like ETL, SQL, data connections, Snowflake, Alteryx. If you want to explore any of those deeper, we're here to help. We're certified in all of those. I did just want to say thank you to everybody for your time today. There will be a recording of this webinar that will be posted along with a link for a free trial of Tableau Desktop. Once you download that trial, we'll also provide you with a copy of the workbook that I created here today so you can explore it yourself and kind of poke and prod at what we just went through. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Adam. Time for a few questions. All right, Adam and Nate, are you able to see those questions that came in?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Adam, do you want to take the first one there?
Yeah, the aging buckets question?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We can do the calculations within that calculated field to bucket your data into those 30, 60, 90, 120 buckets. I did not dive into it today, but Tableau does have some very powerful date functionality baked into the product that will automatically take that and put it into those buckets for you too. Very helpful when you're looking at year over year, month over month, fiscal year over fiscal year type calculations. But we can definitely create calculations to bucket those that data.
Hey, Adam, would you repeat the question just so that those on that can't see the Q&A maybe can hear what the question was?
Yeah, the question is to make an accounts receivable aging buckets of 30, 60, 90, can that be done in Tableau? And I really just touched on creating either the calculated field that would do that for us or leveraging some of the functionality built into Tableau to do that for us.
Thanks, Adam. I can take the second question. The second question was, Tableau seems similar to NetSuite Analytics. What is the advantage of using it over Analytics? And I think the answer I would give there is that NetSuite has many good features built in their analytics solution, and most of those are going to be surround data that exists within NetSuite. and using the data that is already in NetSuite. And if you're just working with NetSuite data, NetSuite Analytics is a great solution. If you're looking to bring other data in, for example, maybe from your CRM, potentially from maybe a marketing campaign or things like that, that's where Tableau and a data warehouse can be very valuable in bringing data from multiple systems that may and where the data may not live within the NetSuite environment. Hopefully that.
Good example of that, I would say, Nate, would be Mike's demonstration on the Tableau dashboards he built. They included Salesforce data in with their NetSuite data, and that's just something unique that Tableau can help with.
I mean, another thing I'll chime in on is, depending on what system you use for your budgeting and forecasting, right? It may not be inside of NetSuite. You may still be doing that in Excel, or you might be doing it in something else. And so that's another use case where you'd want to, be able to bring together your actuals from NetSuite with that other information.
There's another question here. If we have much experience with QuickBooks Online, we do. We have connected to QuickBooks Online and the QuickBooks Enterprise, the desktop versions. Have experience across a whole variety of different accounting systems, extracting that data and then bringing it into a usable data lake, data warehouse place where we can then report off of it.
Yeah, that's right. And please reach out to us. We'd love to have a Tricia. We'd love to have a conversation, and we have some contact information. We'll also be sending out our the recordings. The other question was, will we be able to get a copy of the recording? Absolutely, that will be coming out in the next couple of days. We just need to get it edited, and then we will post that, and will be coming out as well. And then email will contain the download, the free trial download for Tableau Desktop, and then from there we'll get you the workbook. Okay, any other questions?
All right. That looks like we got everything. So thank you to our presenters, and thank you everyone for attending. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.